Orange is back to explain stuff.
Hello.
You know, he's the best player, so currently, so I need his help. So, Orange, what would you say is the best way to start building a deck? Like, what's the
Well,
first thing you need to do?
well, thank you, Mozz, for that completely organic introduction. But to me, whenever I build my decks, I always look for just a card or two that really, I guess, speak out to me in kind of they work in tandem together. And so you find this like core combo idea because the way I think a deck should be built is you have a specific chain of 8 in mind when you build your deck.
Interesting. So, like, what would be an example of that in the deck that you won the tournament with?
So when I won the tournament, I was scrolling through all the cards and I found Pumpkin Sword, and I realized if I add that to if I have a Honey Bear, then my Pumpkin Sword can deal. If there are 7 cards in my chain, my Pumpkin Sword would deal 28 damage. And then if I had a Buff Kid in my chain, my Buff Kid will deal 14 damage, so that is 42 damage from just those 3 cards in my chain, as long as I have other cards in front of it. So I already had in mind that had to be my chain, which meant I had to be able to discard cards behind it, which is where my blue flame punch and things like that came in.
I see. Um. So. Um. I don't know. I didn't really plan this out very well. Well, I think that we should just go ahead and start building a deck and explain um, some of the principles along the way. How's that sound?
Sounds good to me.
That's that's great. So, what do you think we should build the deck on this time? You know?
Uh, I was thinking of going back to my roots and the original decks I was winning games with and play with the worm archetype again.
All right. So, I have to actually find the worms. Oops. Set plus CM. Set equals CM. Worm. Okay. So here we have all of the worms. Um, what would you? How many of each?
So the way I was thinking was obviously you have your one gargantuan worm,
Yes.
um, your 2 dapper worms, and then probably throwing in about all that you can. So your 3 gummy worms, your 2 evil worms, and your 3 happy worms.
And then we also need gargantuan snack time.
Yeah. And you could throw 2 in. I would only throw 1 gargantuan snack time in, though.
All right. So we have our cards in mind. Our initial, we chose to work with worms and the worm archetype. So what would we do next?
So from here, when you look through the worm archetype, you want to figure out how you want it to play because there's no set play style for any of these. So I was thinking of keeping the same sort of mid-range feel to this deck, but the direction I would want to go with this one is specifically powering up a Dapper Worm. because a good way to play worms is you can't really OTK as well as you can with other archetypes, specifically punches and knives.
Yes.
But what you can do easier is kind of whittle down your opponent. So the goal I'm thinking with this deck is to create a chain using your Gargantuan Worm, Evil Worm, Happy Worm, Gummy Worm, and Gargantuan Snack Time to knock your opponent into a range where your Dapper Worms can finish them off at the end of the game.
So, what else? What else should we add? Should we add a Buff Kid?
For sure.
Okay.
I would go ahead and throw in two.
Two Buff Kids. This is very bold statement here. I'm going to change the settings to put it only to the default card quantity, and then I will change the counters to 50.
The reason for the two buff kids, now this could easily be one like the Gargantuan Snack Time, but it's mostly Gargantuan Snack Time is very good. It could be anywhere in your chain. Gargantuan Worm just has to be in it. But Buff Kid, having two of it just increases the likelihood of you drawing it, and there's no guarantee you will have Gargantuan Worm in the first chain you set up. You might just have to settle, throw out a weaker chain, which isn't too bad because you still get worms in the discard pile to power up your Dapper Worm.
Yeah. So, what else should we add?
I would throw in some more late game options with two cyborg bats.
Cyborg bats. Interesting.
Because towards the end of the game, you're going to end up
with a handful.
Well, even so, a generic 4 at the end of the game after your long chain should be enough powered up with your Dapper Worms to finish the game off fairly quickly.
Interesting. So, we also need to include some healing.
Yep, and obviously, running a deck like this, Sad Doggo is the prime healing card. Yeah, I would say two of them. And of course, throw in 3 Spaghetti Tornadoes.
Oh. Always with the 3 Spaghetti Tornadoes.
You can argue for a spot. You can argue having 2 because my philosophy when you build a Combo Masters deck is to ensure that you have a purpose for every single card. You know how you want to use it. And Spaghetti Tornado does clog up your chain quite a bit, but at the same time, it gives you the cards you need to complete your strategies. And even more useful is if you draw a lot of cards and you realize you're in a poor position, it's easier for you to, for example, abandon your chance of drawing the one Gargantuan Worm in your deck and quickly shift.
Also, it can be used as, well, how many? I don't remember. Yeah, one of them at least can be used for requirements to play Gargantuan Worm.
Yep.
That's useful. What else? We have 21 of our 35 cards here, so we need a little bit more.
So this, well, it went super fast at first. Right here is when you start to get, at least where I start to get very picky about my cards and have to really look through them. An important thing to note is we do not have any item cards. Now, I'm not the biggest, I say I'm not the biggest fan of item cards when I've won 2 tournaments using them, but at the same time, I am really bad about clogging my deck with them, but I think including just one here, 1 or 2 would not be a bad option.
And which would you recommend?
I'm actually still trying to figure that one out here.
Well, I was thinking Recycling Bin or Shooting Star.
Yeah, those are ones I was looking at. I was just making sure. There's I was just seeing if one existed that does not exist. I would say, yeah, Shooting Star. Actually, I'll go with Recycling Bin.
See,
Um,
I think Recycling Bin is a one of them.
One or two, yeah, I think just the one. But this is mostly for, you'll get to a point. My problem with Shooting Star is not only can it power up your opponent's Cyclops bats, which is annoying, but also, just to me, I feel being able to shuffle your deck is very nice. If you end up, obviously you wouldn't know for sure, but if you get the feeling you have that Gargantuan Worm at the bottom, or that Gargantuan Snack Timer, you want to shuffle that up.
Yeah.
But also, to me, it is a lot easier to manage a hand, a smaller hand, knowing exactly what cards you have in it. When I ever have bigger hands, I'm a lot more prone to make misplays. And so being able to realize I don't need my Dapper Worm yet, I can put that back in my deck, pick up another card. It manages the game better for me.
It's very useful too, because when you're setting up your final, well, not your final, but your big, combo, your Gargantuan Worm combo, a big problem with it a lot of times is that you don't have the Gargantuan Worm or the Snack Time or whatever else you need to complete it. So that allows you to be able to get that card. Are we including a Honey Bear?
At the moment, no.
Interesting.
That could be included later. I'm on the fence about that one. I will say, I think Recycling Bin and Shooting Star, obviously one of the big differences is you can only have 2 Shooting Stars, while you can have 3 Recycling Bins.
Yeah.
But a big part that can make Shooting Star better and might actually be a better fit for this deck in the long... Actually, you know what? I will make the switch here just for this reason. I think we make it 1 Shooting Star instead of 1 Recycling Bin. Exclusively because... well, 2 reasons. One, the magic requirement for Gargantuan Worm. While we have that Spaghetti Tornado, it's never a bad thing to have another. But also being able to draw if your opponent sets up an abomination on you. While Recycling Bin does not quite give you the same liberty. And if you have a hand you really like, you might not want to throw away a card from it.
Speaking of abomination, do you think that we should include it?
I'm actually going to opt for no.
Interesting.
Mostly because I feel like while it stops your opponent, I don't think we're going to be using our chain enough to justify having it in the deck.
I see. A card that I think personally that we should include in the deck is Fortune Cookie, because it definitely comes in handy a lot.
For those of you wondering, the number 1 rule for deck building in Combo Masters is to never put Fortune Cookie in your deck.
Here's the thing, right? What if you need, right, to heal, but you also kind of might want to take 4 damage?
See, but the thing is, a card I do think should be in the deck is Knife Storm.
Knife Storm, and that would be to not only deal damage, but also to get rid of the Spaghetti Tornadoes if necessary.
Yep, I have a feeling you definitely see the use for that in there.
2 of them?
Yep.
Alright, so we're at 24, so 11 cards left, and what's next?
And we're very attack heavy at the moment. We currently only have 2 action cards in the deck. So now is where we start to pick and choose which actions we think. What do you think we should add?
We have actually multiple actions. We have Gargantuan Snack Time, Buff Kid,
Oh, I
Sad
forgot about that
Doggo,
one.
and Spaghetti Tornado. So that's 4.
Well, Gargantuan Snack Time and Buff Kid I envision as attacks, but
While you're looking, though, at action cards, I feel like. There's a lot of them that I commonly include, but that probably aren't, suitable for this deck, like Ghost Explorer.
yeah, I don't think Ghost Explorer is a good one for this
Since
deck.
you need the worms in your discard, the fact that it could pull them back out kind of defeats the purpose.
But on that same line of thought, it might be worth it to include Snavaclaw in the deck.
A Navy Claw. Wow, that is actually a good idea.
I'm thinking 2, maybe just 1, but
We'll do 2 for now.
I think 2, especially if you do get to the point where you just need to put some more worms in the discard.
Yes. What else?
Or
you were saying or. Sorry, I cut you off.
I was just going to say, or you could. I guess it wouldn't really matter in this deck too much, but say you had a Night Storm behind your buff kit and you just want to move it back, you can move it. And then I think we should increase the Sad Doggos to 3 and add Spike Blobs.
So 3 Sad Doggos and 2 Spike Blobs, or 1?
2.
Okay, so we're basically doing my strategy now. Way to rip me off here, Chinese.
But this is less of a burn idea and more to get rid of Snavaclaws and Sad Doggos from your chain.
So we're now at 29 out of the 35 cards. What do you think we're missing?
Let's see. So going through, we've got a lot of damage, not a lot of healing.
I also think that we should add 1 Crab Maga. Just because.
Yeah, if someone's stopping you from playing your buff kids.
So we can go ahead and add that. Do you think that we should include Mint Drop for healing?
I see the purposes for it. I think so. I think maybe just include 1. Just because I think Mint Drop is a lot more for desperate situations, or at the end of the game.
Yes.
But so we have some more healing. I think in the last 4 cards, we have an opportunity to address this deck is not one. If your opponent takes the momentum out from under you, I don't think this deck can recover currently.
And how might you include ways to recover?
I actually I'm trying to think, because this is a very important part. So if you have a poor chain and you need to get back on track and get more cards, you obviously have cards that let you draw with your Spaghetti Tornado and your Shooting Star. But there's a name of a card that is very much slipping my mind right now.
What's it do?
Oh, there it is. I feel like Laser Pointer could be useful.
Laser Pointer.
And while there are chances this could easily clutter up your hand, you have to be very careful with reflexes. But and I would have it at 2.
2.
Just because the way you take a deck out of this from its momentum is to try to control it with a lot of those action cards, such as your shield blob or your sludge blobs.
So at the same point, would it be smart to include a Ghost Bowman?
I will actually say no.
And why not?
Just because, at least to me in my decks, I don't like to mix playstyles too much. Because while it can be useful, I'm a little iffy on the Crab Maga, but I do understand it could be very necessary at some points.
Yes.
But my issues with it is when you, at least the way I play, and remember, I get close to losing about all of my games, is I feel like if you try to counter your opponent, you're missing the opportunity to draw a card to kill your opponent. So I feel like in that turn you pick up Ghost Bowman, the probability of you having picked up a Gargantuan Snack Time instead, or something like that, is too worth it to have the card, if that makes sense.
I see. So, what will the last two cards be? Or last single card?
I'm just going to explain Laser Pointer a bit more, and that is specifically as a momentum breaker card, because it forces your opponent to not play any more cards after you use it.
Yes.
Which to me, and usually your action cards, just generally, whether it's better or not, people play action cards before they play attack cards.
Yes.
So usually you're nipping your opponent's turn in the bud, and so so they take 2 damage, and not only they're not able to hit you, you're able to kind of take and ride that momentum on your next turn.
All right. So, what is the final card or two? Do you have it in your big brain?
So we want to try to get Dapper Worm out at the end of the game after having a strong chain using your Evil Worms and your Happy Worms and your Govy Worms and your Gargantuan Worms.
Yes.
So let's see. So we need to figure out the best cards to do that with. And I will make the unconventional decision and say the final card will be 2 copies of Mozzarella Rocket.
Mozzarella Rocket. The greatest of the... Oh, that's not what I thought it was.
Were you thinking of the Flamin' Hot Cheese Stick?
Flamin' Hot Cheese Stick, yeah. I was about to explain what the card did, and then I was like, uh-oh.
But hovering over it, I feel like you can see why Mozzarella Rocket is the move here.
Yes. Being able to draw cards while also dealing damage.
So you're able to draw your cards, and also Snavaclaw works very well with this card.
Okay.
Especially because this deck is a vast majority of attack cards.
Yes.
You have a very high shot of drawing 2 cards as you deal your 3 damage, and you need to have that Gargantuan Worm and maybe a Buff Kid, maybe Gargantuan Snack Time, but those cards are very important to be able to get into your hand.
Yeah. So that is the deck, right? So now I just want to very briefly go over the steps that we took to build our deck and the steps that the people watching should take to build theirs. So obviously first we chose our card, which would be Gargantuan Worm and the other worms that go alongside it. Then we chose some cards such as Buff Kid and Cyborg Bat that would go along with those as well. We included Sad Doggo and Spaghetti Tornado, which are deck staples usually. for the healing and the drawing. And then after that, we just added the cards that we thought would be necessary for different situations that you might encounter during the game, right?
Yep.
Is there anything else you would like to add?
No, I think you pretty much summed it all up.
Well, then that is that. Um, Definitely think that we should do a battle video with this deck. Um, I don't know what other deck we will use. But that sounds very interesting. So maybe stay tuned for that. And yeah, that would be it. So great.